Okay, so in the last video, we learned about the two different types of interest, so simple interest and compound interest. And now we're going to set that up in a spreadsheet. So I have my little spreadsheet. I made a new one called financial unit. I have one that was, let me get this out of the way. I have a tab down here that says income, and then now I have a tab that's interest because that's what we're working on now. So I'm going to make this pretty. I'm going to insert a picture. Okay, I cheated. I made this in Canva to make it look pretty. So again, this is our little, we're putting money in our little coffee can, except now we're putting it in a bank instead. So, okay. So let's say we are investing, I'm gonna call this P for principal because that's the money we're starting with. So I'm going to start with let's say $3,000. You may be starting with $50. It doesn't really matter. We just need a starting amount. Okay, and let's say the interest rate, let's say I'm comparing simple interest to compound interest, and normally you would get a different interest rate, like if you were putting it in a CD, which is a certificate of deposit, as opposed to like just a plain ordinary savings account. But we're going to use a high interest rate just for illustrating this, how they work. So I'm going to call this R for interest rate. And I'm going to say for both of them, let's pretend, well, actually, I can set it up. I could say R simple and R compound. That way I have these two different things, and they are two different things. But in this case, I'm going to use them as the same just to make it easy. So, okay, so I don't really like that. Okay. I'm going to say CD rate. Okay, so I'm going to say like 4.3%. I'm going to put my percent in there so that way I don't have to convert it to a decimal to do any of the calculations, because normally if you're going to do calculations with these things, you have to, if you're giving it in percent, but you want to change that to decimal form before you do anything. So I'm going to make this the exact same just so that we can compare. Okay, so we're going to do the simple one first. So I know that I'm going to need several spaces. I'm going to type the headings, and then I'll merge on top and say simple. Okay, so I know I'm going to need the year. I know I'm going to need my start value. I'm going to need the interest that I earned, and I'm going to need the end value. Okay, so now I know I need 4 spaces, so I'm going to merge and center on this one so that I can label it. This is going to be simple. Okay, I'm going to put some lines and stuff in, but I'm going to get this other one set up first. So when you're setting things up in Excel, one of the beauties of Excel is that you can copy and paste and then just change a little bit. So I'm going to copy these. So notice I highlighted those. I'm going to go Control C. I'm going to come over here a few spaces, Control V. And notice I have the same formatting. I have the same everything. So now all I have to do is change this to compound. It saves a whole lot of time that way. And that's the whole point of Excel, is you want it to do the math and you want to save time. So, okay. So I have those. Now I'm going to make it bold. I'm going to underline it. In a minute, I'm probably going to create grid lines. Okay. So I'm going to start with year 1. Some people, you could say it was your year 0, but I'm just going to go ahead and start numbering from 1. It's less confusing. So I'm going to do maybe 10 years. So I don't want to have to type 10 all the way down. I could do that, but again, that takes a while. I don't want to do that. So what you could do, let's say you type 1 or 2 of them. You need at least 2, because if you only have 1, it's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag down at this bottom right corner. But if I only have a 1 and I click and drag, it's going to fill in 1 for everything. That's not what I want. I want it to number. So I'm going to go 1, 2, maybe even 3, but definitely 2 of them. Now, since I have that, if you highlight both of those, and you have to highlight both, because if you only just highlight one, then that's what it's going to put in and everything. when you click and drag this, what happens is Excel looks at it and it looks to find if there's a pattern. So like in this case, we have one and then we go up one and then we're going to go up one like that. So it should keep numbering. See how it went to 10? But it's looking for patterns. So like if I did 2, 4, 6, and then I highlighted that, it's going to look at that and go, oh, wait a second, they're going up by 2. So if I do that, notice that it continues numbering by 2. Or if you go 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, it's going to look for the pattern again. So if I do that, the next one should be 32. Oh, no. Okay, I guess it didn't look for that pattern as well. Anyway, if you do that, it's going to go up. So again, I can do this over here, 1, 2. Highlight, click and drag. I could have also just copied and pasted. Like I could just highlight this, Control C for copy, Control V, we're good. Okay, so the starting amount is going to be the same on all of them. So first of all, these 3 right here, these are my inputs. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to highlight it orange. I'm going to highlight it green because we're doing money. Those are my input values. So I can even make a note over here that this is input. So now everything in this table, like I'm not hard typing anything. Every single thing here is going to refer to here. So you're from right here on, you're not going to type any more numbers. So right here, my starting value for both of these for year 1, I'm going to go equals, and I'm going to click on principal. That's only for year 1, but that's what we're starting with. So that's 3,000. Compound interest, same thing. My starting value is going to be my principal, and the principal is the amount that you put in. So like a lot of times you'll hear about people or businesses or schools having big giant investments and they live off the interest and they never touch the principal. That's what that is. They're never touching the investment that's there. They're only just using, the interest that they earned on that investment. Okay, interest. Simple interest versus compound interest. So simple interest always takes its same interest off of the principal. So this interest is going to be the exact same all the way down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go equals. I'm going to take my CD rate times, so shift 8, this. I don't want that to change. Like I don't want either one of these to change. So in one of our last lessons, we learned that if you put a dollar sign, so it's all about the dollar bill, y'all. If we put a dollar sign before the letter and before the number, this tells Excel, okay, we're going to always just refer to this. So when I click and drag, it's not going to update. It's always going to refer to those. And that's what I want, because that's what simple interest does. So like with simple interest, if I pull this all the way down, it's the same all the way down. That's what I want. Okay, my end value is going to be whatever I started with plus my interest. So I'm just going to go equals this one plus this one. And now, so at the end of year 1, I have $3,129. So that $3,129 becomes my new starting value for the next year. So I'm going to go equals. Again, notice I'm not typing any numbers. Go equals, and I'm going to click on that end value. And then this end value, this is going to be the same formula all the way down. So in this case, I can click and drag all the way down. Notice this hasn't filled in yet because our start value for these are 0. This one, so I don't want to include this because this was a special case, but starting with year 2, the end value is always going to, the starting value is going to always be the end value from the year before. So if I click and drag this, so like my next one is going to be equals this one before that. So now if I click that and I drag that all the way down, all of a sudden the table fills out. So like year 4, I ended with $3,516. Year 5, that's what I start with. So it just, everything that, like when it ends here, the next year when it starts there, which makes sense, right? Because if you've got $50 in December, January, if you didn't touch it, you still got $50, right? So if it starts the next year, it's just what you have. Okay, so that's our simple interest. Our interest didn't change. We add it up every year. Compound is a little bit different. So the first year for compound is going to look exactly the same. So interest, so notice, so we already have this. That's our start value. Our interest, so this one, we're not going to use any dollar signs. Well, actually, we are. We're going to use it for interest rate, but we're not going to use any otherwise. So for this, we're going to go equals. And now we're going to be taking interest off of our starting value, not off of our principal, which year one, it is our principal, but after year two, it's not going to be. So I'm going to go equals. I'm going to click on this one instead. Times my interest rate, which is this. Now, right here, I want it to always refer to that. So I'm going to put dollar signs around my B value. So B5 is going to get $1. So it's this one times my interest rate. I put enter. Again, looks the exact same for year one. And value, we're doing the same thing we did before. So we're going to go this one plus this one. Oops, I put a period or something in there. Let's see. There we go. Excel is really picky. If you add anything in there that's not supposed to be, all of a sudden it just won't work. So like this one, I accidentally touched the decimal when I was going to hit enter. So when I put a period there, notice it turned back black again. It's not red. That means it doesn't think it's referring to a cell. It thinks it's referring to something called J12. So if I take the period off, it goes back red again. So it's referring to this cell. So I hit enter. Okay, again, notice that's the exact same. Start value of year two is just my end value of year one. So that's 31.29. Interest. So notice in the last case, we referred it to here. We didn't refer it up here. So if I click and drag this down, all of a sudden instead of taking interest in year two off of our principal value, we are now getting interest on what we have. So in other words, you're earning more interest every year because you're being given interest on the new amount that you had. So your original plus the interest from the year before. So we go equals this one times our interest rate, which we could have just clicked and drag. Again, this needs a value. I'm in a dollar sign. I'm going to put dollar there, dollar there. So now I'm going to go ahead and click and drag all the way down. It's going to give me zeros because I don't have any numbers yet. That's okay. This is the same thing as it was before. So you're just going to go to the bottom, click and drag. So notice already on year two, at the end of that over here on the simple interest side, we had 32.58. We already have 32.63, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's going to start to add up. Okay, so this one we referred to the row before, so I can go ahead and click and drag. And then right here, I can go ahead and click and drag. And notice like these are zeros, but as soon as I click and drag this, it's all going to like update. Ta-da! So then in this case, at the end of year 10, with simple interest, we had $4,290. With compound interest, we had $4,570. So we've already made quite a bit. This is just $10, 10 years, and this is only just putting $3,000 in. And this is a little unrealistic because normally if you're putting stuff in a savings account, you're going to be adding to that, which we're going to go into more detail with that in probably the next video. Okay. So that's simple and compound interest. I would want to make this pretty now. So I'd probably underline it and maybe even put it in a table. I might color code these. It's up to you. That's all formatting stuff.